Folks, welcome back to the show where we hope that your tears don't get basically vaporized on your cheeks. It is What's Trainwreck Watching Happy Hour Edition. We got another episode of The Boys, episode 4 of season 4, Wisdom for the Ages. So let me get in our guy here who can give us some wisdom for the ages, Mr. Jake Micah. Mr. Micah, another episode in the books and another episode where woo, Homelander's got some stuff going on inside his head.
I feel like this was the most sadistic Homelander episode. But I mean, we've seen some twisted stuff from this man, but this was like a lot of those other times in past seasons were like spur of the moment, like, oh shit, I'm going to do this and like react to something with his temper or whatever. This was like thought out, methodical, and just evil, like straight evil the whole time. So it was definitely yeah, he's got a lot going on at the moment.
A lot going on. And that's what's so funny is because I think that in season 1, episode 1, you know, for people who hadn't read the comics or whatever, it was presented to you that this was your American superhero. This was your like golden boy, for lack of a better term, obviously, as we'll continue to see in this season. But, you know, as we continue to see more example, it just shows that it's anything but that. So loving to see this obviously development. And we get more of it in Wisdom for the Ages. So I can't remember. Did he say that he was going to visit like one of the lower floors or the testing or anything like that in the previous episode?
All he said was at the end of the last episode was when he had his little split personality conversation that he needed to go home. And they showed the little flash.
I forgot that. I forgot. Yeah. Yes. And you know what? I brain deaded on that because I thought he was going to go to his fake childhood home that he gave tours of. But with that said, yes. So he goes down to what, like basement level 6 or whatever, with all kinds of crazy things, scientists and everything. Oh my God, I hate when I blank on a point early. But anyways, we got a lot going on in this episode as we have Huey dealing under the table with A-Train, and we actually have Mother's Milk and Butcher teaming up on a mission after I feel like they've already broken up 2 to 3 times this season.
I know, man. Most on again, off again power duo, buddy cop couple I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy. And Mother's Milk, like after last week, he needs to be out. He was like the one that was like, he needs out. I'm going to kick him out no matter what you guys say, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And then this episode, he's like, it's my call. I'm bringing him back in. So yeah, he's sending a lot of mixed signals to the rest of the team. That's for sure.
I agree. I mean, and let's face it, Butcher doesn't even know exactly what's going on in his brain. So we need some steady leadership.
Honestly, none of the boys do. Like the whole team is kind of in their own world right now. Mother's Milk's the only one who's like got an eye on the ball of what's going on.
I agree. Everyone is living their own storyline in the boys, versus being drawn into the same cause. You have Frenchie out in his storyline. You have Miko out on hers, obviously. You have, families, former gang lines crossing, everything like that. But let's go. And speaking of former rivals crossing, before we get into the truth bomb and everything like that, Huey dealing under the table with A-Train here. So first off, was this surprising to you when he went to the meet with Kamiko and it ended up being A-Train?
Man, Huey is like desperate times call for desperate measures. I never thought we'd get to this.
This is a Hail Mary. This is a Hail Mary.
The anger that he's had for A-Train this whole series, and I know that A-Train, like we're seeing the little glimpses of the baby face turn. Like they're throwing the seeds in there that A-Train's going to come through and have either just a full turn or just a very heroic death. One of those two things I think is coming for A-Train. I don't know anything about the comics or any of the further storylines, so I'm not spoiling nothing or saying anything. That's just my read on the situation with A-Train, where he makes a hero sacrifice or he helps them in the long run. But it was crazy. But Huey finally listened to the rest of the team, and I feel like Mother's Milk, voice of reason. I know we have that trademark, but he feels like that for this team, and kind of convincing them, like, guys, listen, like we can turn him and he's valuable for us. And Huey kind of listened to that, and in his desperation, trying to help his pops out, see what he can do.
Yeah, he's trying to get anything he can to get his pops back online. Obviously, you got the mom kind of still lurking. Seems like something's going on there with the mom lurking. I can't quite put my finger on it, but she's almost like too quiet and too ominous in the whole situation. Instead of trying to be a role like this parent who's back in Huey's life after all this time, wouldn't she be trying to, maybe kind of, voice up a little bit, like maybe try and, kind of gel with them a little bit more than how it's going. But I don't know, a little too quiet while
There's
going.
the times that she's with the dad alone, and like who knows what's going on. She has all the rights to what he's doing, so maybe we haven't seen like the type of care he's like. I don't know. It's really interesting. You're right. Like what she's got something else going on. Like there's another shoe to drop with her whole just arrival into the scene.
Has to be. With that said, so obviously Huey, A-Train, you get kind of the mission here where A-Train has to kind of go through Homelander's. I mean, that's got to be the most nerve-wracking mission of all time.
Oh my
I'm
God.
sorry. Like just a mission where where if you get caught, you will no longer be like existing. I mean, pretty brutal.
No matter how fast you are.
Were you surprised at how I guess I would say how basic like Homelander's kind of like stashes were?
I know, like, come on, bro. Like, it's just the bookshelf. Like, everybody's got a
like
secret
the
bookshelf.
Classic push-in bookshelf. Everyone has that, right?
Finding the milk was hilarious, though. I was not anticipating him finding that first before finding the V. That was a good got a good chuckle out of an episode that didn't have a lot of chuckles in this one. That's for sure.
Definitely got a good chuckle. I mean, the milk thing is like the more you understand Homelander, I mean, it's like you're surprised the milk isn't out more often the way he acts, for sure. Truthfully, with that said, so obviously we got that storyline. He ends up getting the V, and we're kind of in a loop with that story because it seems like he gave the dad the V, even though they never showed it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, that's what I was wondering because it looked like
it looked like they was going to give it to him, and then he put it in his pocket. And he got scared by his mom at the last second, and then you don't see him give it to him, and the dad comes back, right?
Yeah. So that's all we know. So maybe she had some V. Maybe she already was like ahead of him. Who knows? I don't know. Or he's just coming back here and going to see these two people together in his life that he probably never thought he was going to see together. He's been in a coma for now at least a couple weeks. So.
Now, and like any show we do, whether it's House of the Dragon, Loki, Obi-Wan, anything, I did a little research, just like trying to figure out a little bit more about this episode, like like what happens with the mom in the comics, like is it all the same to this point? Again, I don't know anything on from this point, but one of the recaps I was watching that did know the comic stuff says in the comic stuff when someone's like basically dead and you use Compound V, they tend to come back as like kind of like a super zombie version of themselves.
Oh, geez.
So that'll be interesting to see because obviously, Huey loves his dad. His dad's very basic guy who just loves James Patterson. So yeah, no, not much to know there. But the real action and the real, fun with this episode happens in the form of Vought Plus getting 6 straight hours of Truth Bomb hosted by Firecracker, aka Misty Tucker. I mean, this shit continues to be hysterical week after week.
So good. So good. The fact that they bought out this 6-hour thing for her to go out there and just spew her misinformation, basically. But but she did have some facts. She did drop some truths during this that affected a lot of our characters.
That's exactly why we said it in the first episode. With TruthCon, for every 15 lies, there's just one truth sprinkled in, so it can kind of
that's a great point.
Confuse you and can kind of befuddle you for certain. But yeah, this was funny. So she's going on Starlight. A lot of it's bullshit. You got the Ezekiel, the pastor or whatever.
Oh my God.
Starlight, 9 letters, 6 upside down. Like, come on.
Annie January,
12 letters
6 and
like
6.
666. Yeah, just unbelievable. And the funny thing is it's like you've seen examples of it before, so it's always funny. But yeah, a lot going on in this episode. And then it all starts, obviously, when Butcher and Mother's Milk kind of sneak in to the back there. And we'll be back with the second half of our episode breakdown on the other side of this ad.
Batavia down! Win more, lots more!
So, obviously, the spot to win more, lots more, Batavia Downs. Mother's Milk and the Butcher looking to win more. So, I'm a little bit fuzzy. What was their goal in sneaking in to the trailer to begin with?
I don't really. That's the one question I had too. So we're in the same spot because I was like, what is their plan here to go back and just confront her and just like? I guess like they were gonna send the tweet out and that was like the thing. Like, oh, we have this, we have this dirt on you. You want to talk about truth bombs? And then she just didn't care about the pedophilia situation essentially that she's dealing with. I don't know how old
She
she's
really
supposed to be
glossed over the pedophilia situation, but I guess that's just to show like how that could happen in like a rallying speech and like get to like a new point, I guess, or whatnot. I mean,
And
that's
turned
definitely
it-
not happening. There's no modern day versions of that, I would think.
No, definitely not. I
It
would
was
hope not,
absolutely
at least.
absurd.
But so I think that they were gonna go blackmail her and try to like maybe like get her as a double agent
Oh
or do
yes,
something
okay.
like
They wanted
that.
her working on the inside. I
Yeah.
forgot. Yes, that was why
They thought she
wanted
was
to confront
stupid. That was like that because that's the big thing with her, right? Is everybody just kind of assumes she's just this like empty-headed, airheaded woman who is just
Yeah,
kind of
she's
out there
defiant.
spouting stuff.
She's
Yeah,
against all this shit, and that's what she did. She sent the tweet herself. It's kind of like a fuck you to them.
she's smarter than they give her. Everybody has given her credit for so far, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, all right. I'm picking up what they're putting down there. And then obviously we got Butcher sneaking into the trailer, and then we got him confronted by Ezekiel, and then we got a fight scene there. Now, this is a classic The Boys fight scene where a mutant starts doing something crazy. He's got the hand on the door, and he's got like Butcher in the chokehold with like the arm wrap. I mean, Butcher, he was about to pop his head off.
Yep.
The worm was crawling around now, so this can go. We'll start winding down the episode here because we can talk about the mystery because this episode ends. Butcher and Homelander, they're kind of like parallels throughout this series in a way, or not necessarily like, but their stories run amongst each other.
Yes.
And they both kind of end the episode covered in blood in a weird situation. Butcher doesn't know how it happened. It seems he's kind of walking out. The place is empty. He thought he was on the verge of death, passes out, and the other guy's gone. And he's just a big, like, blood. So was it the worm in the head? Was it some kind of new power that Butcher has because of, like, Temp V? Like, because he does say at the end of the episode when he's talking to Huey, he said he stole some from Frenchie, right? Is it the new Temp V? What's going on here?
That's what I'm guessing. That's what I'm guessing is he has a superpower now that he doesn't realize what it is. And maybe it's this, whatever this worm is in him that is like, that's the thing is like, who know, like, I don't know what the heck that thing was supposed to be. We saw it crawling around.
But it was like just about to emerge in a way. It felt like when,
like
when he
coming
got
to his
choked
face
out.
or something.
Yes, it was going to its eye hole basically.
So it feels like he has some kind of power that he doesn't even fully understand yet. And it's a little terrifying because Butcher, who could this happen to then, right? Like if he did this to Ezekiel, it doesn't mean that it couldn't happen to the boys. It doesn't mean that it couldn't happen to somebody on his team if he has no control over whatever this thing is. And it clearly was like activated when he was at his most stressed. This man's been stressed a lot of times. Like, could he hurt Ryan with it? That's what I'm thinking of. He's in a battle with Homelander and he's super stressed and he's out there and then goes off and he hits both of them. You know what I mean?
Not Butcher taking out Ryan. I don't know if I can take that.
That's what I'm a little worried about. So it's interesting. I don't know. Like, but it feels like it being out of control and Butcher kind of being out of control completely this whole season doesn't bode. It's going to bode poorly for one of our heroes here.
Well said. It is going to bode poorly for one of our heroes. So it seems like the bug is sort of Ezekiel, and that's kind of the other question. You kind of leaped the gun there because we're getting to the end of days here. It feels like with William Butcher, one way or the other, by hook or by crook, because it seems like he's making his like will, his last testament. I could see this being the last season for him, one way or the other. And then I don't know. I don't know if this show goes on without William Butcher. To be honest, as good as the rest of the crew is, there's just the edge he brings when he's in the scene and when he's in the, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, and I feel like he's really the only one who can get to Homelander. Like, not like physically get to him and be in contact with him, but get him to like.
I just want to jump in because he's the only one who knows how to attack Homelander.
Yes,
and again, It's not a weapon. Like it's definitely not a weapon. Obviously, it's the emotions, it's the psychology of the situation, and he's the only one who like has so much experience battling him that for sure.
That's the biggest difference with like why his strength, like him and Annie Starlight are the biggest powerhouses of this group, right? Like they're the ones that you would trust the most probably in the firefights, everything else, especially if he's on Temp V, like we saw what he could do with his powers and everything. But Annie has a temper, which we see in this episode. We with going back a little bit to the truth bomb when she's dropping, I think she dropped her abortion records from like 6 months ago or something. What's her name? Firecracker did of Starlight. And then we see Starlight, you know, she reacts, man. She loses her temper. And this is not the only time we've seen that throughout the seasons from Starlight. And I think that's what separates her and Butcher. Butcher has that temper, but he can use it to his advantage against Homelander and everything else. And I feel like Annie January, Starlight, it rattles her more than it's a hindrance to her. And she hasn't really kept it under control since she left the 7. Like, I feel like she was more in control and doing that stuff when she was in the 7. But when it comes to Ryan, I mean, now with what we just saw with Homelander is really, like, I knew he was capable of this, but that was some twisted shit, man. That was like that's easily the most sadistic thing I think I've seen him do so far.
Yeah. So would you rather? I don't know. I guess we have to ask this question on What's Trainer Arc watching. Would you rather be the guy who got his dick lasered off and then had to like wither in pain for like 30 seconds? Or would you rather be the guy put in the super oven that got basically nuked like in like 15 seconds?
Man,
I think I'm on the nuke side. I think like the guy withering in pain was pretty fucking tough.
Yeah, I think his whole situation, I'd rather just go in that oven and just know what's
Definitely
coming.
go in the oven. Definitely go in the oven. I mean, again, I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is obviously The Boys, brought to you by Amazon Prime, where things, put you in situations you never expected to be in. Speaking of situations you never expected to be in, yeah, I mean, that last scene. So Barbara, that was a perfect example of why it is so psychological with Homelander.
Yeah.
She was beating him in the conversation. Like she wasn't scared of him. She acknowledged that that he could obliterate them all, you know what I mean, in 2 seconds. And she just goes like, yeah, like since the second you came out of like the womb, like, we had no control over you. Like, and that's how it's always going to be. And that was the key thing. That was the keynote, was that he'll always have like his kryptonite will always be his humanic need to be loved. Like that was installed in him, and he can't like get rid of that. Right. That was her point that she was bringing to the surface. And then his way of clapping back at her wasn't making her jerk off in front of everyone, wasn't, putting her in the oven. He just said, you never feared me. And then she goes on that whole tangent on why like she never had any reason to be scared. And then it basically put her in that room and locked it with like the massacre in there, basically.
Yeah, I think he laser beamed those hinges on there. I don't think she's getting out of there anytime soon.
Yes. Nobody's getting out of there anytime soon. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty horrifying. And she wasn't even covered in blood, right?
No.
So something happened. I'm trying to think of how he could have done that. He must have done it so quick where it like all went out or something, because obviously with his, superhuman strength, he knows probably how to do that with the control he has over everything. But yeah, absolutely vicious. That was from the trailer, right? Him in the elevator.
Yep, that's a shot. That's a shot. I think it was one of the last shots of the trailer you saw. Was him all bloodied up.
For sure. That almost happens like once a season. That's kind of like where he goes into a group or a room of people and, something bad happens to that room. Speaking of not something bad happened, but something interesting happened. So obviously we had the Homelander ridiculousness, and let's end the episode here on some more ridiculousness with the Deep. With the Deep and Sister Sage. So first off, we got Guy Fieri's. We got the with the fried pickles. So from Flavortown. So that's huge. But we learn a little bit more about Sister Sage. She basically, her brain is always growing, or her brain is forever, essentially, right?
It's always growing, always regenerating.
Always regenerating, cannot be. So her version, she has him perform a frontal lobotomy, almost like to get high, it seems like, in a way. Like it was the equivalent of like her kind of like, basically getting high. So very interesting to see there. Yeah. Very pretty good scene, and then obviously they start going at it. But the Deep and Sister Sage are hilarious. Sister Sage endgame here gotta be. I'm realizing the more that we go on, CEO at Vought, right?
Oh yeah, I think that since that first interaction with Homelander, she knew she knew she was being considered. Knew that someone was going to probably, or at least hoping someone was going to show up, and if someone showed up to ask her to join the 7, had probably plan A through Z of how she was going to execute it to get what she wanted and take control of this group. Now, I don't think she would have, liked what Homelander did and like that going off the end. He seems like he's pretty uncontrollable right now, even though he's listening to her. But she clearly has at least the Deep under her thumb and knows like what gets him to tick, and that's just going at it and having having some fun
Yeah,
together.
she
That's all
knows
they're really doing.
she knows the switch to flip when she
Trying to
wants
keep
him
him
to
away
stop
from that
talking.
octopus. I mean, that's really all it comes down
Absolutely
to.
trying to keep him away from that octopus. But yeah, so the interesting note, this is halfway point for the season. There's 8 episodes in the season, so
Here we go, man.
yes, will be interesting. I think we got one more episode next week. I think that's how we're going, one episode at a time going forward. But thank you for tuning into this episode of What's Trainwreck Watching. As always, remember, myself and Micah, we are on the panel as well for House of the Dragon. And we'll have much more content coming up throughout the summer. We got Deadpool, Wolverine, and much more. So please tune along. Make sure you're subscribed to everything because, it's obviously the show where we find out what's Trainwreck Watching. It's about next week's episode, and it's always about a good